Greetings and blessings whenever and wherever. Many of you, my brothers and sisters in Christ, and my fellow survivors of suicide, loss, and attempt. I am Minister Brandy Johnson, and I want to thank you today for joining and for listening in. This is the podcast for the group Just More Than Survivors of Suicide. We are a Christian faith-based support and advocacy group. One of the goals is to break the stigma that surrounds suicide by talking about it openly, but also talking about it in a safe and respectful manner. So today I want to share with you some numbers and some statistics because suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in America. This information is from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They have a website at afsp.org/suicide-statistics, and you can also find the information that I'm going to share with you there. Again, suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the U.S. In 2020 alone, there were over 48,000 deaths by suicide, and there were an estimated 1.70 million suicide attempts. Those are staggering numbers, you guys. To think that this many people not only have died by suicide, but many have made these attempts. So we know that there are many survivors out there. And unfortunately, the stigma that surrounds suicide may prevent them from wanting to share their stories. And this is another important reason why this SOS and this broadcast is going out. Because I personally have found, since my own child's death by suicide, doors are slammed in your face left and right when it comes to conversation. So it's important that we recognize after the first 10 leading causes, and I'll share those with you here in a moment, suicide is the 11th. That actually puts it above homicide. And those numbers are also very staggering. But before we move on, I want to share more of the information from the AFSP's website. The age-adjusted suicide rate in 21 was 14 people per every 100,000 individuals. The rate of suicide is highest in middle-aged white men. In 2021, men died by suicide almost 4 times more than women. On average, there are 132 suicides per day. White males accounted for 69% of suicide and deaths in 2021, but 54% of all suicide deaths in 2021 pertained to firearm use. This is a big subject going on right now. The use of firearms spans many different cause categories. But when pertaining to suicide, it accounted for over half of all suicide deaths in 2021. Additionally, 94% of adults surveyed in the U.S. think that suicide can be prevented. I was not surveyed, but I do agree that this is something that is preventable, not only through mental health assistance, but also through faith-based assistance. Myself personally, faith keeps me grounded and centered. And as someone who studies both ministry and psychology, again, I believe that there is grounds for integration to both. Many of us have a faith or religion that we practice, and it helps us to build the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we have in our life. It gives us a place to belong in order that we can rise above ourselves. But additionally, with the help of mental health professionals, we should be able to find that middle ground to loving ourselves in order for us to be able to love and to help other people. But these numbers that I've given to you, the suicide being the 11th leading cause of death in the US, over 48,000 deaths by suicide in 2021, and over 1.70 million suicide attempts during that year. These are numbers that we greatly need to reduce. And if we look at the top 10 causes of death: heart disease, cancer, COVID, accidents, stroke, respiratory diseases, Alzheimer's, diabetes, liver disease, kidney disease. These are things here that are not always preventable or curable. But suicide is something that we can bring attention and awareness to by speaking out about our own experiences, whether we are a lost survivor or an attempt survivor. Breaking the stigma that surrounds suicide can help those that are in need know that they are, one, not alone, two, that they do matter, and that, three, most importantly, there is help out there. We have the hashtag 988, the crisis intervention hotline. It's been up for about a year now. It took the place of the toll-free 1-800 number, which is actually still being used, or the 741-741 text-to-talk phone number. But we don't have to seek help outside of our own homes if just in that moment we need someone to talk to or reach out to. Most everybody has a cell phone nowadays. There is no reason why we shouldn't be encouraging those that are in need and in crisis to reach out at that moment. They shouldn't have to feel ashamed. They shouldn't have to be embarrassed. And again, I do believe that when those of us who have survived are able to share in order to care, that the stigma surrounding suicide can be greatly reduced, and those that are suffering from a suicide crisis will be more likely to reach out. Additionally, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, their campaign that is running, they have a couple of them, Seize the Awkward is one of them, and Talk Away the Dark is another one. So they are educating and supporting conversation and initiating these programs that help to bring this awareness. And I think that if you have the time today and you can support or you can join or you can watch some of their videos, that you definitely check out the afsp.org website and check out their hashtag Seize the Awkward and Talk Away the Dark. But I want to focus more locally because Just More Than Survivors of Suicide is local to Kansas City. One city that spans across two states. So, of course, we have Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. In Missouri, suicide is, again, the 11th leading cause of death. In ages 10 to 24, it is the third leading cause of death. In ages 25 to 34, it is the third leading cause of death. In ages 35 to 44, it is the fourth leading cause of death. It seems like we're just going down the line here. In ages 45 to 54, it is the fifth leading cause of death. In ages 55 to 64, it is the 10th leading cause of death. And in ages 65 plus, it is the 18th leading. When we look at ages 10 to 34, they're tied for the third leading cause. This is America's youth. This is the youth of Missouri. This is the next generation of leaders that are being cut short for whatever the cataclysmic case may be. The third leading cause of death by suicide for so many young individuals. It's heartbreaking. I cannot believe these staggering numbers. I believe in 2021 in Missouri, there were 1,125 deaths by suicide. That is 18 people for every 100,000 people. And that ranks the state of Missouri 15th in the statistical charts. Nationally, that's an astounding number. That puts us up above half. And no matter in America where this has happened, we need to get these numbers down to minimal, down to zero. But 94% of communities in Missouri did not have enough mental health providers to serve their residents in 2021. That is almost 5 times as many people died by suicide in 2019 than alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents. The total deaths to suicide reflected a total of over 24,000 years of potential life that was lost before the ages of 65. Again, firearms accounted for almost half of those deaths at 49% of firearm death by suicide, and 63% of all suicides were committed by firearms. So again, the issue of firearms, not only in our country, but in our state, accessibility seems to be rearing its ugly head. And I would like to do a completely separate podcast about firearms and other methods, but we want to do that in a safe manner without glorifying the wrong things. In most cases, suicide has 2 contributing factors: cataclysmic events, and that is plural because it's not just one single event, but many that normally will lead up to it. But 2 is accessibility. When you're in the heat of a moment, decisions that are made quick and spontaneously do have to do with accessibility. So it would seem that access to firearms is an issue when we look at the cause of suicide itself. And this is in only Missouri, you guys. If we look at Kansas, suicide is the 9th leading cause of death. It is the 2nd leading, and this is duplicated again, the 2nd leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24 and ages 25 to 34. The 4th leading cause of death for ages 35 to 44. The 6th leading cause of death for ages 45 to 54. The 10th leading cause of death for ages 55 to 64. And the 18th leading cause of death for ages 65 plus. Kansas had 531 deaths by suicide. That is, again, around 18 people per every 100,000 people. And it places the state 12th, which is 3 above Missouri. But both Kansas and Missouri are very close to each other in their state rank. When we look again at the state of Kansas, 67% of communities didn't have enough mental health providers to serve their residents in 2021. That's almost 6 times as many people that died by suicide from 2019 than alcohol-related motor vehicle accidents. The total deaths to suicide reflected a total of over 12,000 years of potential life lost before age 65. 64% of firearm deaths were suicides. That means that 59% of all suicides were by firearms. So we see a lot of these numbers, state to state, they're very close. Other states may vary more, but because we are, again, a group based here in Kansas City, it is important that we look at our 2 closest surrounding states. because many of us have lived on both sides of that state line. And no matter which side we're on, we can see that suicide affects the state pretty similarly. Now, if we look at homicides in America, 2021 was a total of 26,030 homicides. But suicide in America, almost double, 48,179 deaths by suicide. That is the most tragic thing that I think I could have told you guys today. Those are devastating numbers. One is too many, much less 48,000. And if we look, I have my apologies. I know we can't look, but I have the worldlifeexpectancy.com. It provides a cause of death by age and gender, and it ranks homicide at 16. Suicide is the 11th leading cause, very well above homicide. And it's amazing to think that there are more people out there ending their own life. But either way you think about it, it's not a very pleasant thought. And it's another reason why the stigma that surrounds suicide needs to be combated. You know, a lot of people are open about talking about homicide rates. They're open about talking about drunk driving rates. They're open about talking about heart disease and cancer. I mean, COVID is one of the biggest health crises that our world has seen. And nobody's ashamed to talk about that. But when it comes to suicide, you can hear the doors and windows slamming shut as people turn, for whatever reason. To not be able to share things openly actually causes more people to feel that depression, to feel left alone. And myself as a survivor, I know that it's not a very good feeling when people are afraid or ashamed to openly talking about it, or to allowing us to talk about it. Most times, I think people shy away from it because, they don't know what to say. And we understand that. We really do. But don't be afraid to ask, because most times a survivor is going to want to talk not only about their loved one, but in general about their own experience. And I hope that sharing these numbers today has helped to open your eyes to the crisis that is at hand, so that we can understand, by being able to advocate for others to openly share their story and share their situations, someone else out there will hear that story. Someone else out there will gain the hope and gain the courage to be able to stand up and to share their own story. So today, I really want to thank you guys for joining in and for listening today. And if you have any questions about any of the information I've shared, please feel free to reach out to me. And until then, guys, check yourself before you wreck yourself. I'm old school, pretty old school. And I think it's important for us to take an internal look at our own mental health and to understand how we're feeling and how we're doing. And if we're not feeling right and we're not doing okay, I encourage you to reach out to somebody. If you don't have anybody else to reach out to me. I definitely have time to listen, and I have time to talk. And I'm sure you'll find that if you reach out to those who know you and love you, they'll tell you the same thing, that they've got time to listen because they care about you and because your life matters. And so, guys, whenever, wherever, as always, God bless.